Was on hold with the doctor's office, and they started playing The Exorcist. It's still ringing in my head, and once again, it's like as if acid reflux has encompassed my entire being, and I'm spitting up pea soup. I would imagine Jim Harbaugh is this whole Jim Harbaugh suspension and how bizarre the entire story is. It does seem odd. Now, the NCAA, I would imagine, is less influential than the World Boxing Council.
Yeah, this is the big
in terms of credibility and its ability to go ahead and administrate what was going on in college football. This is an interesting story on so many different levels. As you look at Jim Harbaugh being suspended supposedly for the final 3 games. Now, the fascinating part to me, Lubie, is that you have Jim Harbaugh, a Michigan coach, beloved in the state of Michigan. At different times that they've had their differences with him. Well, when they're losing.
Yeah, 3 years ago.
He wasn't so fucking popular. But now he's a god. Everybody's wearing khaki pants. Incredible.
Doctors are so bad.
But the issue is Michigan decoding their signals. This is Carlos Beltran banging on a garbage can and telling Jose Altuve, yeah, go ahead and steal. He's coming home. They knew everything.
The time. Wake up with Defo, joined by Lubie. Welcome to the Defo Show.
All right, cue up the music. Very pleasant. Good morning, everybody. Great to be with you. A Peel Yourself Off the Mat Monday here on the Defo Show. I'm Jeff DeForest, along with one Mike Lubie Lubitz. We're going to be joined for the Pigskin Playbook by the great John Congemi. A lot to celebrate with the Miami Dolphins. Huge record-setting victory over the Washington Commanders. My son, Jesse, was at the game. Took a little road trip, Lubie, with a bunch of buddies of his. Ended up on the 50-yard line.
Nice.
And much to his surprise, he found a substantial contingent of Miami Dolphin fans tailgating in Washington, D.C., getting set for what turned out to be just an offensive party. The likes of which we haven't seen since Studio 54 was the red-hot place to go to in New York. I mean, it was just an amazing performance by the Miami Dolphins offense. We'll get into that with John Congemi. And, of course, we have to clear a little platform here for what should be – you seem to be over it, Lubie, which is surprising to me.
Over it. It's not an over it, and it's not an angry kind of a thing. What is there to get angry about? It's the sport's dead. Like the point of playing college football does not exist anymore. And a lot of people, like the Cam Newton thing broke a lot of people's hearts where the sport was never the same for them, where Cam Newton clearly took $250,000, was well known, was well understood. Auburn was told to suspend him.
What was the giveaway? His dad's Rolls Royce?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Was it kind of like when Reggie Bush's parents were saddling a horse in the Del Mar Debutante and the Pacific Classic that they went from being homeless to all of a sudden they have Bob Baffert training their entire stable? But was that a surprise? I don't think so. But I'm going to clear a platform for you here. We did have to bid a special hello, and this is happening later on today. Believe it or not, I'm going to be heading over to the Harris Casino in Pompano.
Nice.
You shouldn't find that as any surprise. But,
it's not shocking at all, actually, but it's a Monday. That's different.
A friend of mine started thinking, with the amount of money I have invested in Harris, courtesy of my wife and her 7-star status, which means that she spend a lot of time at the slot machines. And I love being in the race book over there at the Harris Casino as much as I love punching the ponies. There's nothing like driving down the block and being in simulcasting heaven. It's kind of like the day a good friend of mine described to me. He said, hey, have you been to Vegas lately? This is a friend of mine named Alan Bork, one of my original sponsors here. He had a company called Triple Crown Insurers. We were doing a horse racing show. It was our first endeavor here in independent productions in South Florida. My buddy Mike and I, who I don't know. Yeah, you can kind of see Mike in the picture in the background there, if that's in the shot, because we changed his background, Lubie, and got rid of, and it's unfortunate because there will no longer be a tribute to Ladislao Mijangos in the background here. The esteemed former Mexican heavyweight champion, as I quickly change locations from where I'm doing the broadcast here in the Defo household. And the only thing I had that I could hang up there at the time was this picture of this boxer that covered a match of his against Hercules Mike Weaver in 1994. So that's gone. I went with a little musical motif. I don't know if you can make that out, Libby. But I will be singing the praises, and we hope to, into the distant future, sing the praises of the Harris Casino and maybe get a little something going there with the lovely Kim Butler. Going to be meeting with her and Mike Clancy a little bit later on today. So looking very much forward to that. So that's one of those things. It's always good to have something in the day, Lubie, that you're looking extremely forward to, especially if you have to clear space in a program for somebody to just wail away on the injustice, the unfairness, the ridiculousness. And I have to say, I side with you on many fronts. If you're going to have a criteria set up, and one of the things, the stipulations is that if you go undefeated, then guess what? The committee doesn't have to examine whether or not you had a good or a bad loss.
Yeah.
Now,
The trial points are for when you lose. And I get it. Look, and that's the other thing. A lot of people worried that there'd be 5 or 6 undefeated teams. If there were, shit. Okay, now we have to
then
go.
It's a judgment call. Okay, that's fine.
Dissect. But that's what's cool about the undefeated thing is you're undefeated. Once you get, that's the point. They do the South thing early because the rankings matter, right? But by the end of the year, people lose. 2 lost teams, 3 lost teams find themselves in the top 10 normally, right? This is a weird fucking year. Like normally by now, everyone's lost and there may be one undefeated. So that's why they got into this breaking down. Where they went wrong, I mean, where they went wrong is a lot of places, but the major mistake was treating it like every other year. You didn't have to. You didn't have to treat it like every other year. It was actually fucking easy. Like that's what I was telling Mayo yesterday. Like people were nervous, and I was like, "No, there's no reason to be nervous. It's actually ESPN's making it difficult because they want eyeballs, but it's actually a simple case. Like you have 3 undefeated, Texas beat Alabama. Boom, it's easy. You don't have to do any math. You don't have to do any dissecting. But the SEC matters, right? The SEC is the only thing that, even though the SEC sucks this year, the SEC actually is like the 3rd or 4th conference.
Yeah, how do we know that Alabama didn't beat a somewhat mediocre Georgia team that just happened to mow down its SEC competition? And even they struggled. Alabama won a handful of games by less than 6 points.
Yes.
Was nearly knocked out of the championship game by an Auburn team that had, 7 losses also?
6 losses. And just
6 losses.
An FCS team the week before by double digits.
Exactly. I mean, this was all about Nick Saban. This was all about Sankey, the SEC commissioner. This was all about the fabulous moolah. And it really is disgusting. If you were a player on the Florida State team, you're feeling this kind of pain, and deservedly so. If you're a fan of the Seminoles, if you're a fan of college football, and there are many people that are saying, hey, look, if Alabama played Florida State with this freshman quarterback, and they played them, would you not figure that Alabama would be a 10-point favorite over that team? Sure.
Make them 30.
But that's not the point.
What the fuck do I care? Like I'm sorry, that's a load of garbage. FSU's actually proved you're fucking wrong. FSU's proved you're wrong. FSU's proved no matter who they play, where they play, they win. That's it. So
and the fact that they did it under those circumstances, not only knocking off an arch rival with a backup quarterback who had to have more than a share of ring rust on him, and they rallied to win that game in a very difficult place to play when they beat the University of Florida the week before. They took on Louisville with a quarterback that definitely looked startled in there. I think he had taken a few snaps, but and maybe actually done some good in garbage time in some game. But true freshman playing, they couldn't get any kind of offense going, but they managed to win. And that would be more of a tribute to the team to stay undefeated under those circumstances, I think, than even Alabama. Look, snapping the 29-game winning streak of the Georgia Bulldogs was no small accomplishment. They won all of their games except one when they got clobbered head-to-head on their home field early in the season, albeit, but that did not happen to Florida State. They didn't stumble at any time, including with a third-string quarterback in a conference championship game. So weak conference or not, that's a little bit too difficult to judge. Not sure if they had an ACC, SEC showdown, how many victories the ACC would come up with. It's possible that they might even split the bill right down the middle. But this was all about getting Nick Saban into the championship round, and the only way they could do that was to have Texas in there also.
Yes.
And by doing that, by deciding to capitulate and go ahead and give in to Nick Saban and his weak plea that, you know what, we deserve it too. No, Nick, you lost. You lost straight up on your home field early in the season by double digits to a team that also incurred a loss to one of its rivals that I don't see Oklahoma anywhere around the playoff. Do you? Not even mentioned.
No,
So a very weak loss for Texas also. All right, I'm going to give you the floor here, Lou, because I can't buy into this. We always love ranking screwings. Look, I'm a boxing fan. Nobody's seen it more in any other sport than the people involved in the sport of boxing. Where a guy is deceased and somehow he moves up in the rankings from number 2 to number 1, becomes a mandatory challenger, and they have to exhume his body for Canelo Alvarez to fight the guy. We've seen all kinds of atrocities committed in that regard, certainly with rankings where teams are depending on rankings to possibly win that mythical national championship before the college football playoff. We've seen absurdities take place there and gross injustices. But this was ridiculous because by the criteria that the committee has set up, you win all of your games. And then is it not just as impressive as a team that you can win under the most difficult of circumstances with the highest of stakes? Whether they were the best of the 4 teams that are out there right now in the country with these backup quarterbacks, that's very debatable. But certainly on credentials alone, they deserve the chance to compete.
Who was that? This isn't that year. That's this is the perfect year for FSU. Like, there's no one I'm scared of. Everyone's like, well, you would be skullfuck. No, we wouldn't. We wouldn't be. You're wrong. You are actually unequivocally wrong. You are in the SEC and the Big Ten's pocket. So you're lying. And you know you're lying. Like, that's what's annoying about this is FSU did it. Like, they just assumed, look, before Jordan Travis was hurt, they were already doing this. Like, they didn't want FSU there. Like, FSU's not in the Big Ten. They made it clear they wanted the Big Ten and the SEC, no one else. Like,
yes.
The only reason Pac-12 is there, they're not Pac-12. Washington, as soon as January fucking 10th, and when is the championship? January. As soon as January 15th.
January 8th.
Happens,
yeah, I think it is.
As soon as January 10th happens, Washington's in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
As soon as January 10th happens, Texas is in the SEC. You understand that this is an all Big Ten, all SEC Final Four. Like, that's what this is. Like, they made it clear the SEC was not getting, this wasn't Alabama earned it. Alabama deserved it. Alabama's best. Bullshit. Alabama 2 weeks ago beat Auburn by getting the game handed to them. They didn't beat anyone. That was the lucky. That's what's funny about all this. As bad as FSU is, none of their games were luck. None of them. North Alabama, Travis goes down. They win 58-13, score 45 straight points. Okay. UF, they are down 12-0 with a backup. One of the toughest places to play, everyone says. They win by 9. They win by 9. They win by 2 scores.
Well, and they were getting dominated. So to reverse that whole circumstance in the second half with a backup quarterback, even more formidable in terms of an argument to say that if this is a team sport, now I understand a quarterback is extremely important, but essentially what the committee has said, and now this ends this year because that was always the big debate when they only had 2 teams, that you'd rather make a mistake at 3 versus 2. Or 4 versus 5 than 3 versus 2 and exclude somebody. Now they expanded for the last several years to 4 teams that for the most part quelled a lot of debates. Expanding to 12 teams, certainly it won't matter. I mean, the team that's screaming that they were left out because they finished 13th has no case whatsoever. But, this was a straight-up hose job, one of the worst ever in the history of any kind of decision-making on the sporting front. And really, there should be some kind of investigation into all of the committee members and find out how much money they got from the Tuscaloosa faithful.
Because we can bring John on, but it just tells, that's what people, you got robbed. No, we didn't get robbed. We never had a chance. Like,
and they had them 5th even when they were undefeated, even though Oregon had a loss.
Every week, remember, Jordan Travis was playing and they were winning. And they were winning by double digits every fucking game. And they started doing this thing where they're like, will FSU be 4? It's like, yeah, they won. Like, why wouldn't they? Like, what do you mean? And Jordan Travis was playing. Like, the minute Travis got hurt, they're like, nice. We don't need him anymore. They're definitely going to lose.
Oh, no, that was it.
They were excited. They're like, okay, cool. They moved this out even though we won. They moved this to 5. And I was like, that's fucking weird. We won by like 50. Okay. And then they moved us back. Okay, so now you're just playing with us. Like, do we have a chance or we don't? Like, let me know. Like, why don't
they were in the Final Four before?
Yeah, they won by 10. They won by 10.
They had to stay there. Yeah.
Louisville's offense is top 20. Louisville averages 500 yards a game. Louisville averages nearly 33 points a game. They held them to 6. Get them to 6 points.
That was impressive. And you had to manufacture a win. I remember texting you, hey, can they do anything besides throw the ball to the line of scrimmage? If Marino had gone down when you were at Pittsburgh, John, and we bring on John Congemi for the Pigskin Playbook here, we know Lubie's feelings on this, and they're, I think, more than validated and justified at this stage. I don't know what your opinion is. Should the criteria be, in our opinion, these are the best 4 teams, or if somebody met all the previous credentials and criteria requirements to be in the championship hunt, should they not sustain their position there and be there? What do you think about this whole mess, John?
This was
John Congemi, by the
one.
way, brought to you by Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill.
It was a crazy one because somebody was going to get hosed in winning a conference championship. And when I caught the end of what you guys were just talking about, and when Florida State got moved out when they won, that was the first sign that people were cheering because they were waiting for something to happen to either Washington, Florida State, something was going to happen. So if the inevitable happened in the SEC championship, which it did, then the unprecedented move going from 8 to 3 or 4 could happen. And that's when the talking points went out to everybody. It's not about XYZ. It's about the best team and how you are now and who's hurt and who's not hurt.
That way. Never in 10 years.
I think that
Since when do you check the injury report to decide the national championship?
5 years of playoffs. This is literally the first time an undefeated conference champion was booted out for a 1-loss team. The first time in 10 years of playoffs.
Yeah.
For 2 1-loss teams on top of that.
2, I'm sorry, for 2. Yeah,
it's
this
amazing.
was 2.
Yeah. It was amazing. I kind of felt like it was going to go that way, and I just didn't believe that they would do it at the end of the day. But when it came back and everybody started talking about, now remember what it says is the best team, not the, however they phrase it, the most rewarding team or the most team with the best
accomplished in terms
resume
of record,
and all that stuff. It's about how you are now, not how you were a month ago or a month and a half ago, and how the team was designed and who was playing at that time compared to who's playing now. I thought the FSU AD in that letter that he wrote was perfect. Lubie, he was talking about now we're in the game, or we're imagining hypotheticals instead of what really happened on the field.
That's it.
And I think that's exactly what happened to Florida State. They didn't give them credit for winning on a team that encompassed so many different things to get them to where they were. Yeah, Travis was a huge part of that team. And with him gone, they're going to play a little differently, but they still were able to win games without him and win games, tough games, not easy games. So I just think that Florida State, at the end of the day, you knew it was coming to somebody. And when they saw an opening to kind of get an injured team, because they were wounded without their quarterback. They weren't as strong, but they still managed to win, and they got no credit for doing that. They actually
this exact
they took the bullet for that.
Alabama with Jacob Coker, who was a Seminole, was a backup. Average as fuck. Their offense was literally this. This was their offense. Actually, no, we did more. We found a way to do the Wildcat and be fun in the second half. If you notice, the second half, people stopped bitching about the offense because we moved the goddamn ball in the second half to shut people up, but we disregard that because we don't want Florida State there. Alabama with Jacob Coker, was a backup. They played this. They ran. They played defense. There was a 9-6 LSU Alabama, 9-6. We scored 7 more points in this game than that 9-6 Alabama LSU conference championship. That was a defensive battle. The 20s brought back. Newt Rockney would be proud. We actually scored points. Like, we moved the ball. We woke up and realized we were fucked. So we tried to do some shit instead of just winning 6-3, which we could have, or 7-6, which we could have. No, we put up 16. We did more than they did with a backup. They showed 5 different cases where a backup quarterback was playing and the team still got in the playoffs. 5 cases in the last 10 years. Like, if Jalen Milroe gets hurt, there's no way Alabama doesn't get in. No. Look, Alabama got in without deserving it. So they would have definitely got in then. Georgia, if Georgia's had a quarterback get hurt, Just win. Find a way to win. And it wasn't Ohio State, Wisconsin. Well, Ohio State beat Wisconsin by 50. Georgia doesn't beat anyone by 50. Georgia doesn't even play that way. They don't even try to win by 50. Backup quarterback, Georgia gets in. That's my problem. Like the Colin Cowards and the Doug Gottliebs and and Kirk Herbstreit, who literally was once really heralded and now is just all in the bag for SEC. You're not making cases, guys. You're just saying SEC pays us a lot of money. Fox, ESPN, we need the SEC in there. We're not even they're not hiding it. Like Boo Corrigan literally Tuesday said, these criteria are what matter. Undefeated, conference champion, head to head. So that's why I was like, oh, okay, they can say all the crap they want. Boo put us back to number 4 and said, as long as we win, as long as Texas wins, if Georgia goes down, we're both in. Like he said it. He said it yesterday. And he said, look, injury doesn't change things. Florida State still has a great defense. Florida State still has so many other players on there. He said everything to try and show, look, guys, if you go win and win decent, like don't win by a 1 on a last second play. You win, you control the fourth quarter, which we did again. You'll be in. We did it. Texas did it. Texas dominated Oklahoma State. Alabama beats Georgia. Okay, Georgia's out. Go right in. You got your 4. Yesterday, magically, he's never said any of these things. Well, we were thinking about it. Injury does matter.
Yeah.
Dude, 5 days ago, you didn't say that. 5 days. Dude, what is this? Like Trump, we have video of you saying 5 days ago, injury doesn't matter as long as the team wins, as long as the team finds a way, because defense matters. And the defense played, I've never seen a defense play that well. Louisville has one of the best offenses in the country. Louisville looked scared by the end of that game. Literally, Florida State was just like, all right, fuck it. And just killing them. Okay. And that isn't Iowa, by the way. That's what's so funny about this whole thing is Michigan, who cheated twice this year, their coach was suspended twice this year, played the same way. Like Michigan played 2 games where they just ran for entire halves.
Right.
Really tried to throw, just ran. We had more yards in our game versus Louisville's actually better defensively ranked than Iowa. We had more yards than Michigan, and we're better. Iowa's offense is one of the worst in the country. Louisville has an elite offense. We actually were better than Michigan if we're playing this stupid ass game, which we don't need to because Michigan was undefeated. Michigan should be in. That's my problem. Like none of the arguments the people who are for what happened are logical. They're just you wanted the SEC in so bad that you didn't care. Okay, so then why play? Why did FSU play Saturday at all? Like it wouldn't matter. We could have won 40-0 and they would have found a way. Yeah, but it doesn't matter. There's no
even my dogs are going crazy.
Well, 40-0.
This argument. What do you think, John? I mean,
Well,
about all of this. I mean,
Lubie, to your first point,
all of that's logical.
To your first point, Lubie, did you notice during the Florida State Louisville game? And I like Joe Tessitore.
I never talked about the game.
But all he did was downplay how many first downs were being made and how boring the game was and how this is not the way it's supposed to be. But to your point, if it was Michigan and Iowa or Michigan, whoever, and it was a defensive battle, it would have been, this is the way football, you're going to win at the line of scrimmage. It's a Big Ten battle. It's an SEC battle. It's men against boys when you talk about the way they play defense and the way their offensive line moves people against their will. That's almost like a bravado of the Big Ten or the SEC.
Yes.
But if you do it in the ACC, you can't. You're not efficient. You stink on offense, evidently. But the Florida State's allowed to play good defense too and get credit for it.
Isn't
but
it?
no one ever really said it.
Well, that's my.
Jesse Palmer did. I have to stick up for him. He actually was talking about those points, but it seemed like it was being driven by the negative
narrative
of the game. Yeah.
Look, the offense was abysmal. No one's saying it was good. Did you watch JJ McCarthy's what, a 3-year starter? 4-year starter?
I think so.
You watch Michigan? Has anyone? So it clearly just no one's watching Michigan. Like they're just watching the result because Michigan's offense has been asked for like a month and a half. Like they're not even trying. Like at least FSU with these young guys are trying. It scared me to death half the time, but they're trying. Michigan's like, now we're just going to run. Our defense is so good. If we can get 10, 13, we'll win. Okay, so why is it okay for them? With their starter, you have your starter, a guy who people once were saying a top 10 pick. I mean, he's obviously not a good quarterback. You have your starter and you're going old school, 3 clouds and dust. We have our third stringer and we're trying to throw with the same result, winning by double digits, which is what Michigan did. Why are we not like, That's my thing is there's no logic to it. It's okay. You were bought and paid for. It's wrestling. Like, and I know we all love this sport. That's why to me, it's not even that I'm getting angry now because we're talking about it, but I'm actually hasn't been angry. I've just been sad because if it was another team, I would feel the same way. I wouldn't be as angry because my team did it, but I'd be as sad. Like to me, this is clear where we thought we were going to be in 3 years. We're now where in 3 years, it was going to be the SEC Big Ten when they worked everything out. No, we're there now. Like, look, it's an all SEC Big Ten final. January 10th, Washington's in the Big Ten, Texas in the SEC. Look, they didn't hide it. They made it clear we didn't want anyone else in. Texas is not the Big 12 anymore. They're the SEC. Washington's not the Big 10. They're the SEC. They're
not the Pac-12, the Big 10.
Not the Pac-12. They're the Big 10. Right. Okay. So then why did we play? Like, why did these kids risk injury? Like you were never putting, we could have Travis in there and they were going to come up with the same garbage. Georgia could have won. That's it. Well, if Georgia won, they would have put they wouldn't have. They would have put Texas in. They didn't want us in. They did not want us in, even though we played the same way Michigan's played. There's no dominant team. Like people, well, Michigan would have waxed them. No, they wouldn't have. Michigan hasn't waxed fucking anyone good. Anyone Michigan played that had a ranking near their name or ever were.
It's always been a tight game.
Yeah.
But why would we have not been better than we're not better than Iowa? Get the hell out of here. Like, I'm sorry. Like the Doug Gottlieb got, the 4 best. No, that's not true. You didn't put in the 4 best.
Well, we might have to take a break to just hose Lubie down here, John. Welcome to the show, by the way.
He's right. I agree with him.
There's no. It's just a joke. Nick Saban, as soon as he started campaigning for this thing, you're looking at it going, okay, that's what's going to happen. And in order to accommodate Nick, and if they somehow beat Georgia, which they did, and you snap the team's 29-game winning streak, even if they weren't as good as they were in previous years. Georgia was certainly suspect at different times this year. Didn't play well in this ball game at all. Alabama had a good ball game, and they win by 3 points. But there's no way to disqualify Florida State and justify it. It's just it makes no sense. If you were on that team, John, I mean, like we said, let's say Marino had gone down. Pittsburgh was number 1 in the country, and they eliminated you. They had the same circumstances now that or then that they do now with a selection committee and all of that. I mean, how can you possibly send that message to all of these college athletes that you're saying are aspiring to become great people and great leaders? That hey, you know what, the guy we thought was way better than you, he's not playing, so you don't even get a shot, even though you've met all the other criteria. It really is. It's unfortunate. Look, somebody gets hosed in these circumstances a lot. When they were voting on it, the playoff was supposed to eliminate a lot of that. And yet this is such a travesty. Fortunately, it ends this year. You won't have that kind of a cutoff between 4 and 5. And it was very unusual to have that many teams that were all sort of under the same umbrella. I mean, look, is it a shame that Texas is in there? They were outstanding in their championship game. And to beat Georgia was no small accomplishment. So, sure, yeah, you can make a case for Texas and Alabama, but not ahead of Florida State. I just
think that the brand outweighed what happened on the field. The SEC banner.
That's it.
Outweighed everything. And Greg McElroy,
the banner being laced with cash,
blatantly said it on the show when they were coming out with the announcement. He said, there's been an SEC team in for I don't know how many years, but probably every year, right? So the committee probably, they play a better brand of football. They have more competition, whatever the criteria was. But I've never seen a team go from 8, all the way up to 4. And, granted, give Alabama credit. They beat the number 1 team in the country.
Teams do that all the time.
But but how do you think Georgia feels the same way? Like we haven't lost a game.
The 3-point loss,
in 27 weeks or however many games they played.
29 in a row,
right. And now they lose by 3. It wasn't like they got blown out. That would vault somebody up the ladder. They lost by 3 points, and they're 6th. And how about this? Every team that is in the college football playoff, I wonder if Vegas put odds against Georgia, I bet every one of them would be underdogs.
Possibly,
yeah.
That's the funny thing is the Orange Bowl could have been solace, right? Like, okay, we're not in. But Georgia's probably better than every team. Even though Georgia screwed around like everyone else, that's why I'm not scared of any of the teams. Any of the top 8 to me, I think could have won it. Any of them, including Florida State and including Oregon, who Oregon's 2 losses were close to like a top 3.
There were 3 points.
So this would have been the perfect year for a playoff of 12. We all are saying that. The committee's like, God damn it, 1 year. Okay, well, it's not. That's life. You have to make tough decisions sometime. Put on your fucking pants and go out the goddamn door. But the thing is, like, I don't know. It's just, I don't know what they did was go against everything they've said for 10 years. And it's like, okay.
You had to think there was some television executive on the other end of the phone going, okay, way to go, guys.
Yeah.
You got that right. Very unfortunate circumstance. We went from election fraud to selection fraud, I think, in the span of 4 years. And unfortunately, election fraud probably be popping up again. As the presidential race comes around in 2024. All right, John, before we get into this break here and talk a little bit about Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill, which a friend of mine was commissioned, I believe, to do some artwork there as part of the renovation.
Nice.
So, yeah, I mean, a lot of good things happening there. They're going to spruce it up. But record-setting on-the-road performance by the Miami Dolphins. I don't think they've scored that many points on the road since like 1986, something like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was the stat I believe that I saw? I mean, I might be confusing that with something else in what was a large compilation of numbers and numerology that was thrown at me over the weekend with sports and other things. But yeah, it was very impressive. I mean, Tyreek Hill, 5 catches, 470 yards. That was amazing. Tua seemed to be on his game and a dominating performance. Dolphins doing all of the things that they needed to do yesterday to continue on this run, which has you believing now with the Chiefs losing last night yeah, I mean, they're right there as good as anybody in the AFC.
Yeah, they went from kind of coasting to win the AFC East to almost vaulting to stay home in the playoffs if they take care of business. They could probably wrap up the AFC East within the next couple of weeks if they keep winning, because Baltimore has a couple of hurdles they need to get over, and Buffalo doesn't look like a team that is going to threaten anybody down the stretch. This is the first time, Defo, I think the Dolphins at 9-3 since 2001.
Yep.
So, I mean, they're so explosive on offense, and they didn't miss a beat. You know, losing Jalen Phillips on the edge of that defense was going to be huge, but Van Ginkel and Ogba, you know, really picked up the slack for those guys. And Van Ginkel has an interception, a pick 6 on a screen. You know, he got causing havoc in the backfield. Both of those guys. I think the Dolphins sacked Sam Howell 3 times. They couldn't stop him on defense. The Commanders, they couldn't stop him. So it was one of those performances that if you're going to miss on Tyreek Hill, he's going to burn you. He's just so fast that when teams are used to seeing him live, he looks like he's not moving at all, but he's going right by you, you know, because he's bouncing, you know, so quickly on his feet. And Tua is just, you know, getting the ball out on time. The offensive line did another terrific job of being able to run the football when they needed to, protect, and guys just running under passes. It's fun to watch every week's. You know, you're just saying, is Tyreek going to have another 100-yard game? I think he's had 8 of them this year with a touchdown. Mostert gets another one on the ground. He leads the NFL in rushing touchdowns. Tua's, you know, going bananas at quarterback. So it's fun. It's a fun team to watch, and I feel bad for the Tennessee Titans coming in on Monday night because at home they're even more explosive.
Yes.
The one retort you would get from people that you know, want to kind of bring it down from being giddy about the Miami Dolphins 9-3 start would be the 3 losses. And as you were looking at one of them, what was to Philadelphia, and as you looked at the Eagles the last couple of weeks, even though they'd been winning, you know, people were trying to you know, elevate them to being the best team in the league. Record-wise, they were, but they certainly seem suspect. And then they get cremated yesterday by the 49ers. And you were thinking, geez, if the Dolphins had done this, you know, the way they performed against the Commanders, albeit a different team entirely on the road, if they had played like this with this kind of symmetry on offense against the Eagles, they probably would have won that game or should have. But what do you make of that? I mean, is that argument still valid that, hey, show me that you can beat a team with a winning record, and then we'll really start to buy into what this team is doing?
I think sometimes it comes down to matchups. And the reason why Philadelphia and Buffalo at the time and Kansas City got the better end of the Miami Dolphins is they're probably just better built, and they're used to playing at another level where the teams that are kind of muddying the waters at 500 or below are there for a reason. They give up big plays. They're not as good on the line of scrimmage. They turn the football over. The Dolphins, they've been winning, but they've been turning the football over. They didn't do it yesterday, but they've been on the losing end of that turnover margin for a while, but they've been able to overcome it in certain games because they're playing lesser opponents. And when they do play good teams, if they do make mistakes against the Buffaloes of the world or Kansas City or Philadelphia, they're going to lose those games. And they were on the bottom end of that in those three contests. So, when the Dolphins have to gear up for Tennessee, yeah, they still have to protect the football. But when you look at what the teams are on paper, you go, wow, Miami should win by double digits. They should be able to get after the rookie quarterback. They should be able to score points on that defense. And they have the Jets coming in again. The Jets can't score more than 10 points. Would they have
Oh my God.
an 8-burger yesterday or something? I
Put up an 8 spot. They were up 2-0 early in the
Yeah.
ball game. Got a couple of field goals. They're out of quarterbacks. I mean,
right.
and now that Joe
And
Flacco,
Joe
has
Flacco's
signed with the
in
Browns,
That's right.
they
He
don't
threw
even
a
have a lot of
touchdown
options.
yesterday. It was great.
They can't find a guy floating around. No, horrendous. I mean, between the Patriots and the Jets, I'm not sure how much of a distinction with Buffalo and a little bit of disarray and seemingly some sort of mild chaotic decline. The AFC East didn't seem as formidable by any stretch of the imagination as it's been in the past when the Dolphins were hoping to maybe be the second or third best team in the division. Yeah, I mean, no, that was an ugly game. There are a lot of ugly games. I mean, we'll get into that. I guess in just a few minutes we'll talk some more about some of the other stuff that's going on in the NFL and also college football with the bowl games now all lined up. Do I go to the Boca Bowl and see Syracuse now that they're getting a new coach? What do you think?
Did
This
they?
guy's legit.
Do we go there and have a couple of cocktails? Who are they
I
playing?
think that's a pretty good
Syracuse?
idea. Go
Actually-
root for your alma mater. That'd be nice.
I'm so detached from the football program. I still retain a mild interest in the basketball team, but I certainly am not like some psychotic fanatic fan as witnessed. But look, Lubie's a lot younger than I am too. Maybe by the time he's in his 70s, he won't give a flying one about Florida State. But I don't know that I'm compelled to go, but it might be a reasonable outing. No, John, what do you think? Taking a bowl game?
What's the matchup there?
That's what I'm trying to find here. I just had it, but somehow my newspaper was on the racing page, race results here.
Always seems
You'll
to
find
do
that
that.
surprising. I had a tip on a horse yesterday. It was the worst tip I've ever gotten in my lifetime. And I actually sent a good friend of mine who's a jockey a message to lose my number. All right, let's see. The Boca Bowl. When is that? Here it is. South Florida versus Syracuse. South Florida versus Syracuse. What do you think?
Yeah,
Do we go?
I think so. I think we put that.
Can we get an outing
I'm
together?
down for that. Yeah, I think that's
8
a
o'clock.
good idea.
It's on ESPN, a night game. Nice evening out in Boca. We go out, get something to eat, come into the stadium there and watch the Cuse for a half and then say, hey, that was a lot of fun. See you next year, John, down at Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. Well, what's happening at the Chill? Where are we at in terms of the renovation?
I think they're on their way to recovery. I think
Okay.
it's looking good, and they're on track, for the new year. So can't wait to get down there, and hopefully the renovations are ahead of schedule, and I think they are. So it's one of those places that I have friends that I send down there, and they're like, John, why didn't you tell me about that earlier? I just go there and just relax and feel like I'm away from everything. Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. Once they're up and going again, you get first class food and service, and the views are breathtaking on the Bayside. So can't wait to do that.
Oh, it's great. I mean, because literally it's so relaxing. The environment's so spectacular, and yet you're getting service that would be, comparable to what you would get in a fine dining establishment. I mean, they're on top of it there. They know, exactly what to do, and they make sure that everything comes out of the kitchen, to your taste and order. And if it's not, bingo, man, they're right back, to make sure that they make amends. No, great place, terrific spot in the Keys. Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. It's mile marker 104, the Overseas Highway in Key Largo. And I think, is it the lodging places that are being renovated?
A little bit of everything. Yeah.
Okay, so and now is that known as the Fisherman's Cove? That the
That
launching?
is, yes,
Okay.
the 6 units on top. Yes, Fisherman's Cove. Yep.
I'm angling to go back there. Speaking
Wanted
of
to have
fishing,
my first experience.
John, if you can make arrangements. All right, we're going to come back with more here. We'll take a perusal of all the other things that were happening. College football, obviously, the hot topic here with the host job of FSU. It really leaves a bad taste in your mouth. I don't know about you,
Here's
John.
the thing: is we hate asterisks. To me, this does put it like. What if Florida State does beat Georgia? Like, what if Florida State's in there at 14-0? This isn't UCF. People, UCF. No, we are in the Power 5 conference. We went out of conference to play LSU, who was number 5 in the country.
I hope it happens.
At Clemson. What if we are 14-0? Like, how do you say you're the perfect,
especially with a win over Georgia at that point?
Yes. How do you say you're the clear champion? Like, I know they're not going to go old school and do like an AP make us number 1 and split.
Yeah, but Lubie, did you see where the coaches put Florida State in the coaches poll?
No, I didn't see. What did they
Third.
They
Third.
did.
So it makes some sense. Yeah, it's ridiculous, the whole thing. All right, we'll come back. We'll talk some more about that and round out the week in the National Football League. The Dolphins will be home now, 3 weeks in a row? They play a Monday nighter.
Yeah, Monday nighter against Tennessee. That's right.
Tennessee, who went down to the Indianapolis Colts. We were giving out like an all-disgusting chalk parlay. I was looking at the first few games on the slate in the NFL, and I think they all won. I think we gave out 4 games. New England looked like it was going to be hapless in their game against the Chargers, who somehow, I guess the weather was bad there. I didn't see any of that game, but 6-0.
Yeah.
Just a ridiculous tally. You knew the Jets were going down no matter who they were playing. You couldn't give the Falcons enough points to make me think that the Jets were going to possibly cover that point spread. That was ugly, 13-8. We had Detroit, I think, winning their ball game as well, which they barely hung on after being up 21-0 against the Saints, who ended up with your man, speaking of Florida State, Jameis Winston in there.
Yeah.
Boy, he's a mistake waiting to happen, huh? I mean, electrifying and at the same time, his best completion came after it went through the hands of a defensive back and into the hands of one of his own receivers. And then I think the other game that looked like it was impossible to see any other result involved. The Colts in Tennessee. Yeah, I thought the Colts would prevail there, and they barely did. All right, now we're coming back with more in a moment here with John Congemi, the Pigskin Playbook, brought to you by Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill, mile marker 104, the Overseas Highway in Key Largo. More in a moment. Now that.
The time.
It's 8:45.
Folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously, friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs unmatched, steaks hand-cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.
Recently realized
State Line Dolphins with John Congemi, and that's brought to you by Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill in the Keys, and we're looking very much forward to doing some broadcasts there. I think we're going to head down there like once a month during the football season. I have to ask you this, and feel free to, not necessarily spill the beans from a personal standpoint to your good friend Dan Marino. Does he experience, or did he ever experience nightmares about handing the ball off to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar that one year when Jimmy insisted on running the ball on every play? And it was always, the announcer, I think it was Ron St. John, was a stadium announcer back then, and you could hear him say, hand off to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, gain of 1, 2nd and 9. Hand off to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, gain of 1, 3rd and 8. Danny ever talk about that? Remember
He's
those
never
days?
really talked about that, Defo. But you're right. I think they did have that on loop at whatever the stadium was called at that
Yeah,
time.
it was 1 yard every time. And it was a generous 1 yard they were giving him statistically.
Enjoy your trip to work with lots of laughs thanks to Defo and Lubie. Now on the Defo Show.
All right, welcome back to the show. A Peel Yourself Off the Mount Monday here. Jeff DeForest. We got Mike Lubie-Lubitz, a very fired up Mike Lubie-Lubitz, as you might imagine. We had to allow him a little bit of room there to vent, John. It's almost like being on the psychiatrist's couch here.
It's therapeutic.
Yes, and you're in a big chair. Well, the funny thing, the irony to me was always this, that remember when the championship was voted upon and Florida State would mail in its routine loss to some nondescript conference opponent like North Carolina State, and they would lose that one game. It was the only game, and then they would steamroll everybody by 45 points in the last 6 games of the season. But because they had the one loss, they were ranked number 2, number 3 in the country. And everybody would say the same thing. Well, geez, nobody would want to play Florida State right now. They'd be the last team on earth that you would want to play, and yet they were out of the race to potentially win the national championship. And that's just the opposite. As they get hosed by this same principle, where people are thinking that they've been so badly compromised without Jordan Travis that they're not even worthy of consideration. That you could overlook every other criteria that you've put in place. It does seem outrageous. All right, so of the teams that are left, Michigan, Iowa's offense was inept all year. One of the oddities, John, about that Michigan game was Michigan was favored by 22 points. I think that's what it went off at post time, and yet the over/under on the game, the total, was something like 36. So everybody was expecting that Michigan would be a vastly superior team, and that in all likelihood Iowa would not score, which they did not.
Right. Did you guys see that one bar in Iowa that was serving beer to all Iowa fans until Iowa scored? Free beer. And I read it on my phone. I was like, those guys are going to get hammered because I don't think they're going to score. And they didn't.
It became painfully obvious that was going to be the outcome. Early in that game, you're watching this going, my God, Ferenc, what the hell happened here? He turned into, a guy that you would think, had no knowledge whatsoever about how to manufacture any kind of a drive. This was, I don't remember Iowa being, just absolutely bereft of scoring possibilities in the past. I don't know if they were putting up, Air Coryell type of numbers, but this was pathetic. Right. So Michigan, we have the game against Ohio State to judge them by. Penn State, we don't know what to make of that one quite yet. And this ball game was no contest. Texas slaughtered Oklahoma State, which they looked to be on a roll. And Sarkisian was saying, he was like a boxer, I'll take on anybody. Bring me anybody. After he gets interviewed, Jim Gray's in there with the microphone, says, what do you want to do next? I'll take on anybody. Give me the champ. And maybe rightfully so. I don't know how you would rate them. Washington, again, impressive. Somehow Oregon was everybody's cutesy team that was going to win it all, and they beat them in straight up fashion for the second time. And Alabama, what are you going to say? It's Nick. So what do you make of the Final Four? How would you actually rate them, and who do you think is most likely to come away with the title? And please, don't say the insufferable one.
It might be. It might be. I don't know. Michigan can score points, but it's not going to be in the high 20s. It's going to be 17 to 24 points. And Alabama is pretty good at those type of games because they're just looking for that one mistake or that one missed field goal or an opportunity to kind of pounce on you. And up front, they're going to be able, I think, to hang with Michigan in terms of line play. So it's going to come down to field position or a kick, something that kind of flips the game one way or the other for one of those two teams. Washington and Texas might be a shootout. I don't know. Both of those teams have a lot of talent on the outside, on the perimeter, and they like to do different things. They like to spread it out. They like to take shots down the field, where Alabama, Michigan might be one in the trenches more in terms of, field position. Let's kick it back to them. Let's get it back and see what side gets the favorable distance to go for a touchdown, right? It's going to be back and forth a little bit, where I think Texas and Washington, there could be multiple turnovers and interceptions, or there could be, it could be 21-21, going to halftime, 24-21 going to halftime. So there might not be as much defense played in that game. Who I think is going to end up winning, I'd have to say the way Alabama's been playing, I kind of like them a little bit more than Michigan, because I think I like the fact that over the last month they've had to do a little bit more to find ways to win, where Michigan seemed like they were just going to run the football and not really do anything. Maybe that's to their advantage now, where they have so much time to prepare. Maybe they do some kind of things that are off the cuff for Michigan, with this time to prepare. Maybe that adds to their arsenal on offense, or maybe that throws them off of what they're doing. But I like Alabama in that game. And then something tells me, Texas, but Washington finds a way to win. I think it's going to be a high scoring game. I don't know who's going to win that game, but I know it's going to be a high scoring game between Texas and Washington. If I had to, pick, somebody said you got to pick a team, I'd probably pick Texas.
Texas, I think, began with an opening line of being a 4.5-point favorite in that ballgame against Washington, and Michigan favored by 2 in the original line over Alabama, although I would imagine there'll be a lot of sentiment thinking that somehow they rigged the game so that Nick wins. And that's college football today. I remember a long time ago, John, I didn't really understand this headline, and it stuck with me forever. There was a columnist in Newsday, which was my local newspaper on Long Island, very good sports section, launched a lot of terrific writers, including the great Tony Kornheiser, had his original start there. There was a guy named Stan Isaacs, and he wrote a column, and it was called, the headline was, On Sport as Circus.
Yep.
And being a diehard sports fan at the time, I found it offensive. It's like, what are you talking about? This isn't a circus. This is what life is all about. It's all about sports and results and playing.
Nope.
And then you see something like this, and I really don't believe either McMahon, Vince, or the World Boxing Council would even find a way to condone this kind of a decision.
They would. This is what they do.
Yeah,
Entertainment.
pretty amazing. All right, on the pro side, we saw San Francisco's dominance over the Eagles yesterday. They look great. Kind of making you think once again that Deebo Samuel's agent for the 3 games that he was out when they lost should immediately, have his contract and salary doubled, because when he's in there,
what a player, huh? He's just such a difference maker.
Tyreek Hill is kind of given some of that element, although they haven't used him at running back yet. Which but when he's on the loose with the ball, it's just a whole lot of fun. So have they established themselves, in your opinion, now with this win over Philadelphia on the road, very convincing fashion, and now rolling after the 3-game losing streak, that they would be the number 1 NFC contender for the Super Bowl, or do you still give the nod to the Philadelphia Eagles, who at this point still have a better record?
Well, I think there's 3 teams in the mix. You got to add Dallas in there with
Philly Dallas, yeah, it's looking good too. Yeah,
and Detroit, I think, is taking a little bit of a step back, but they're still in the conversation.
I think that's the first time they had a 9-3 record since like the '60s.
Yeah,
Milt Plum was their quarterback the last time they were 9-3.
Yeah, so I still think depending on the matchups and where you're playing and how you're playing at that time of the year, you have to put at least those 3 teams in, with Dallas with Detroit being the outlier. And in the AFC, it's anybody's ball game. I put Miami up against anybody right now,
Yep.
Even though they haven't beaten, a Buffalo or a Kansas City, or a Baltimore Ravens, and they're going to have that opportunity later in the season. But you have to put them up there to say, especially if they're going to get home field advantage, that's a team that is playing with a lot of confidence. And if they can just find a way to get home field, they're going to be a tough out in the playoffs.
It'd be a shame if they slumped at the end of the year in those. What do they have? Like the Ravens, the
Cowboys.
Last
year they lost 5 in a row. They were 8-3.
Yeah,
you lose 5 in a row, but the competition they played against last year was a little bit stiffer than the competition that they're going to play over this next 2 or 3 weeks. Counting
plus, the Tua concussion issues. Last
he
year
was
also.
He was absent. Yeah,
he looks great, man. His head looks like it's as big as Barry Bonds at this point. I don't know if it's just because he let the hair grow out, but he looks like a different physical specimen, Tua Tagovailoa. So we're hoping for the best there. All right, excellent job as always. And thank you for helping me with the Lubie psychotic.
I agree
down.
with you, Lubie.
I mean,
He's entitled today. I mean, if ever there was a day that you want to feature Mike Lubie
Yes.
Lubitz, an angry Mike Lubie Lubitz, if sports talk is all about people just venting serious and well-founded venom, this would be the day for it. And we have the perfect guy to do it in Mike Lubie Lubitz. You have a great day and a great week, John. Always a pleasure, my friend. Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill, bringing you John Congemi's Pigskin Playbook. Great job on the tube again yesterday. And we're looking forward to next week's game against the Tennessee Titans. Thanks so much, John, for being with us.
You got it, guys. Talk to you next week.
Thanks, John.
John Congemi, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Everybody's in agreement then, Louie. I can't believe it. I mean,
the funny thing is, I'm not even that mad. I'm just sad.
It's disgusting. It really is. I mean, it's the epitome of everything that reeks of hypocrisy.
Yeah.
In terms of the philosophies of college football. I mean, with apologies to the great Tony Segreto.
Yeah. I mean, look, I wasn't Segreto. I didn't think it was amateur. I thought it was business. But I wasn't the professor. Like, the professor's a big college football fan, but the Cam Newton thing sort of broke him, where he knew it was all about money and he didn't put anything past them. Like, he could see them doing anything. Like, he brought up this Tuesday, and I was like, yeah, they do that. He's like, look, I'm not saying they should, but they could. And I was like,
you saw this coming. You really did. As soon as Nick started campaigning.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, but then why is FSU playing? Like, they games.
And they won the game. I mean, this is the thing that's being completely overlooked. If their quarterback was that bad, that in the opinion of this selection committee, that should preclude them from even getting a chance to continue their undefeated season.
Then why play?
And capitalize and try to add on to the distinction of being the ACC conference champion with an unbeaten record. It's not like there are no good teams. Plus, they played LSU early in the season when they were supposed to be LSU was supposed to be very, very good.
Yes,
and they weren't horrible. The fact that Alabama lucked out in so many games, how does that supersede that the idea that you could win in a conference championship game against a very good team, a team that was up there all year long in the top 10, Louisville, with, as you said, an explosive offense? You limit them down to nothing.
They had 190 yards. They had negative, I think, 30 or negative 10 yards in the fourth quarter. High-flying offense. This isn't Iowa. Like, they picked and choose. Like, whatever they use for Michigan, they should use for FSU. Because what's funny is the strength of schedule. FSU beat 8 bowl teams. Isn't that the barometer of a good team making a bowl? They beat 8. They beat the most of any. That's my problem with everyone that's saying, well, they got it.
Well, the only rationalization was that the quarterback's out, Jordan Travis. But I think, if anything, that only emboldens their case and helps support the idea that this was a very good team, because they were able to win when they had no chance offensively to generate anything. I mean, those line of scrimmage passes were eventually going to blow up in their face, and they come out with the Wildcat, like you said. And isn't it about manufacturing a way to win? That this was not a soft spot. This wasn't Northern Alabama, where they ended up putting up 58 with a backup quarterback. And you also had to think that they were going to be.
He would have been back. They would have had to.
Yeah, they were going to be with at least Rodemaker, who, as you stated, I mean, even though he hadn't had a chance to really prove it so far this year, he did rally them well enough. I mean, he was composed enough to rally in the swamp in the second half of a game where both sides, they were getting creamed by the Florida Gators in the first half. They were very lucky to only be down by a small margin.
Yeah, they came and won.
Yet, I mean, all of these teams incurred their share of luck, including, I mean, most of which was bestowed upon Alabama.
Yep.
Where, how many times did you look and go, my God, how did Nick Saban and Alabama not lose that ball game? Incredible.
Yeah. That's the funny thing is, like, struggling with your starter, why is that better than winning with your backup?
It's crazy. Yeah. It's
like,
confounded, upside down logic. No doubt.
No logic here.
All right. We have to run. We're going to be seeing you later on. We have our No Filter thing coming up. And Tony Bruno Sports Network did a little work, and I hope it was, something that was, going to finally. I don't know if it's going to solve that problem, Lubie. But hopefully everything will go smoothly on the Tony Bruno Sports Network later on today, 10 to 12. For Mike Lubie Lubitz, I'm Jeff DeForest. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time as we leave you know that.
The time.
It's 9:02.
Let's go to eat a damn snack.
Look what they done to my show.